Guys, this story wastes zero time. Mafia boss walks into a random bakery to order a cake for his engagement party. Easy mission, right? Wrong. Because the woman behind the counter is his ex-wife who vanished 3 years ago. And 2 seconds later, boom, a 4-year-old girl runs out with his exact eyes. That is not a twist. That is a nuclear detonation. And it only gets messier from there. Secret daughter, missing farewell letter, fake pregnancy, broken engagement, family war, heir announcement. This man thought he was building an empire, but he had no idea the biggest threat to his life was the child he never knew existed. The beauty of this hook is the value underneath the chaos. Hidden truths do not stay buried, and when they surface, they do not just ruin lives, they expose who people really are. So the real hook is simple. Did Luca lose everything, or did he finally find the only thing worth losing everything for?
Sophia was lost in her craft, carefully shaping buttercream roses on a 3-tiered cake when a chime from the shop door broke the silence. She didn't glance up, her focus absolute on one final, perfect petal. Instead, she called out that she would be with them in just a moment. What followed was a profound quiet, the kind that thins the air right before a storm. Her head snapped up, and her gaze collided with the one man she had spent 5 years trying to erase from her soul. Luca Marchetti, the Don, stood in her small bakery, a predator in a tailored suit radiating a power that had once undone her and now only ached. He stared as if witnessing a specter, which, in a way, he was, after she had disappeared from his world 3 years prior without a word. She saw the hard clench of his jaw, a telltale sign of an emotion he could not process. Sophia? Her name was a raw, low sound from his lips as if he questioned her very existence. She willed herself to set down the piping bag, ignoring the sudden, violent tremor in her hands. Luca, what are you doing here? Her voice was a fragile shield of ice over the frantic rhythm of her heart. The tiny shop suddenly a cage, far too small for them and the weight of their shared past. But before a single word could pass his lips, before she could steel herself for the impact, the sound of tiny footsteps echoed from the back room. And then her daughter appeared, a whirlwind of dark curls, her face smeared with the evidence of a stolen chocolate cookie. Mama, look what I drew. It's us in the shop under a big rainbow. The child held up her crayon masterpiece, blissfully unaware of the cataclysmic tension gripping the room. Sophia watched in suspended time as Luca's focus shifted from her to Isabella, his eyes locking onto the little girl's face with an intensity that chilled her blood. And there it was, the precise moment of reckoning when the truth struck him like a physical blow. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second before his expression shuddered into that familiar, unreadable mask. Isabella had his eyes, that particular shade of green and gold, and the same stubborn line of her jaw that Sophia once traced in the dark. Sweetheart, why don't you go finish your drawing in the back? Mama needs to help this customer. Her voice was impossibly steady, a small miracle in the ruins of her composure. Her daughter gave Luca a curious glance before skipping back to her room, the drawing clutched in her small fist. The silence that fell was deafening, thick with unspoken questions and years of anguish. Sophia met his gaze, fighting the instinct to flee as she had 3 years before. Then he spoke. She is 4. It wasn't a question, but a statement of fact, delivered in that terrifyingly quiet tone that always preceded chaos. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. Yes, she conceded, her voice barely a whisper. She turned 4 last month. And when, Sophia, did you intend to inform me? When she was 18, leaving for college? The shock was receding, replaced by a cold, simmering rage. She knew she deserved his fury, knew the depth of her betrayal in hiding his child for 4 years. I was protecting her from a life I couldn't bear. She folded her arms across her chest, a weak defense against the wreckage of the moment. Protecting her from me, from her own father. He moved closer, and she retreated, not from fear of him, but from the way his presence shattered her resolve. From your world, the violence, the danger. So, you erased me entirely, decided to raise my child alone, granting me no voice in her life. His voice dropped to that lethal softness she remembered so well. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating quiet. I left a letter. It explained everything. On your desk the night I was gone. There was no letter, he countered, his voice sharp. I came home to a hollow house. Your things vanished as if you were never there. He dragged a hand through his immaculately styled hair, a rare crack in his composure. Do you have any idea what the last 3 years have been like? Wondering if you were alive or dead? If I had failed so completely that you ran, or if something far worse had befallen you. The raw pain in his voice was a wound she had never witnessed on the stoic Luca Marchetti. Something fractured within her at the realization that her escape had broken this unbreakable man. I am sorry. I never wanted you to be hurt. I simply had to leave before that life consumed me. And you were pregnant, he went on, raising our child while I was losing myself in work just to forget you. A harsh, desolate laugh escaped him, steeped in the bitterest irony. At the worst part, I came here to order a cake for my engagement party. My assistant is ill, so I had to come myself. With those words, another blow landed, stealing the air from her lungs. Engagement party. The phrase was a blade twisting in a wound she had no right to feel. Congratulations, she forced out, the word tasting like ash. Don't. Before she could flinch, he was around the counter, his presence consuming the small space between them. He stood so close, she could smell the familiar scent of his cologne and see the new lines of hardship etched around his eyes. Do not congratulate me for marrying a woman I do not love for an alliance. I require an heir to secure my position. That is no longer my concern, Luca. We are divorced. You can marry anyone you choose. Except I have an heir, don't I? A 4-year-old daughter with my eyes who I only learned of 5 minutes ago. His hand lifted, hesitating just shy of her cheek. Does she know of me? Does she ask about her father? I told her you were away on important work. I didn't want her to feel abandoned, but the reality was you did not want us in your world. I wanted you both more than life itself, but I needed you there, not just a ghost in our home while you orchestrated your next war. The words were sharper than she intended, edged with the pain of years of solitude. I could not raise our child in that shadow, letting her grow up feeling as invisible as I had. She saw the truth of her words land, a visible blow to his hardened exterior. I failed you, I failed us, and I have carried that failure every day since you left. His eyes held hers. I will meet her properly. I will have time with my daughter to atone for 4 years of silence. It was not a request. It was the unshakable will of a man who shapes his own reality. She doesn't know who you are. She doesn't understand your world or the danger it places upon her. Then I will be careful. I will take every measure to ensure her safety, but I will not walk away from her now. His gaze was an unwavering force. And you and I will speak of everything. You are to be married in weeks. How will you explain a secret 4-year-old daughter to your betrothed? She challenged. That is my burden to manage, not yours, he retorted. You surrendered any right to my life when you disappeared. The words were brutal, yet underscored with the agony of his betrayal. He was still processing it all when a small voice called out, "Mama, I am hungry. Can we have lunch now?" Isabella, entirely unaware she had just detonated and reconfigured their entire existence. "Give me your number," Luca commanded, his phone in his hands, which were not entirely steady. "I will call you tonight. We will determine what comes next for our daughter." She recited the number mechanically, watching as he entered it, spelling her name just as he had when they were young, and believed their love could conquer his violent legacy. He held her gaze with an expression she could not decipher, a tempest of fury and desperation. He growled, "This is not finished, Sophia. We have a child to raise and years of damage to address." He conceded that seeing her again was the best and worst thing to happen to him in 3 years. And then he was gone, the bell heralding his departure. She remained frozen in her small bakery, realizing the ghost of her past had just walked back into her life. Her quiet existence was about to be utterly destroyed. Chapter 2. The beginning of the end. That evening was an exercise in torment. After Isabella was asleep, Sophia stood in the kitchen, a glass of untouched wine in her hand, her eyes fixed on her phone. Luca had said he would call, and she knew he would keep his word. It was the one code he never violated. The memories she had suppressed for 3 years returned in a torrential flood. She let them come, seeking answers in the past for the impossible future. Her mind flew back to her wedding day, a hopeful 23-year-old orphan who believed marrying a Marchetti meant finally having a family. He was 28, already drowning under the weight of a criminal empire he never wanted, but inherited all the same. She had seen the pressure crushing him and foolishly thought her love could be his sanctuary. Their first year was not a catastrophe, but 1,000 small heartbreaks that grew into an avalanche of sorrow. It was a pattern etched in loneliness. His chair empty 3 nights out of 5, the excuse always a late meeting. He would return a shell of a man, too hollowed for connection before collapsing into a solitary sleep, long after she'd given up hope. She performed the role of the devoted wife, telling herself his ambition wasn't a rejection. But a woman can only dine alone so many times before she accepts she is married to a phantom. By the 2nd year, she ceased her attempts to breach his walls. What was the point of sharing her world when the fortress around his heart was utterly impenetrable? On rare occasions, he would see her sadness and ask what was wrong with a baffling innocence, as if he couldn't fathom her solitude when she saw the mailman more than her own husband. She would only murmur, "Nothing," because the explanation required an energy he no longer possessed. The 3rd year was when the quiet finally broke into screaming battles over his ambition versus her needs. He would argue that he was raising an empire for their security. She would cry back that she never wanted his fortune or his throne. All she wanted was him, his focus, his presence, the feeling that she mattered more than his next calculated deal. They would retreat to separate islands on their bed, strangers under one roof. She shed silent tears while he slept, his conscience clear, believing a heavy wallet made him a good husband, and then the truth that changed everything. She discovered she was pregnant 3 months before she vanished. She stared at the test in their cold marble bathroom while he was in Milan, closing a deal on their anniversary. Any hint of joy was choked by a wave of pure terror. A child born into this fractured home was a disaster in the making. She refused to let her child feel as invisible as she did, to watch a father choose his work over his blood. In one final, desperate act, she planned a perfect dinner to tell him, hoping the news of a child would finally show him what he stood to lose. He arrived 4 hours late, offering a vacant apology as his eyes scanned his phone, announcing he had to leave again for an emergency. In that instant, something fundamental inside her crumbled to dust. He would never change. The Empire would forever be his queen. The letter she composed that night was 10 pages of raw, unfiltered anguish she had swallowed for years. She laid bare the ache, the crushing disappointment, the child, and the solemn choice to leave before their poisoned marriage consumed all three of them. She pleaded for his understanding, even though she knew he would likely see it only as a deep betrayal. She placed the letter on his desk, beneath his laptop, where it could not be missed. Then, with a single bag, she walked out of the only true home she had ever had. His silence in the days that followed was her cruelest confirmation. She had never been worth the fight. His structured life was more valuable. Then her phone rings, at precisely 9 o'clock, pulling her from the wreckage of the past into the crisis of the present. She answers the second ring, knowing the time for games had long passed. It's Luca. His voice is a low gravel, frayed by either whiskey or the day's unraveling. The distant hum of traffic means he's driving late, a sound that has always been a prelude to a storm. "You said you would call," she states, her voice flat. "I keep my promises even when the world is burning," he retorts. Then his demand comes. "I need to see her tomorrow. A real visit, not that ambush at your shop." Sophia immediately resists. "Luca, this must be done slowly. She doesn't know who you are." "Then you must teach me how," he says, his voice stripped bare. "Tell me what words to use to make it easier for her, because I am lost when it comes to being a father to a 4-year-old I've just met." The vulnerability is a stunning blow. The great Luca Marchetti never revealed a crack in his armor. "All right, the park by the bakery tomorrow afternoon. You can be there, but I will remain to act as a buffer." Then she couldn't stop the question. "And your fiancé? Is she aware of Isabella yet?" The sting of jealousy in her tone was unmistakable. "Vanessa learns of this on my terms," he stated, his voice sharp. "And I refuse to hide my own daughter, whatever's the cost to our engagement." Sophia's disbelief was venomous. "You'd detonate a strategic marriage for a child you've just discovered?" His words were frost. "She is not just a child. She is my flesh and blood. She is woven from my own soul, and I would gladly set this world ablaze to keep her from harm." An immutable resolve now hardened his voice, leaving no room for argument. "I let you down, Sophia. I ruined our marriage in ways I'm only now beginning to comprehend. But my failure with Isabella ends today. I will not lose another day." That conviction washes over her, a tidal wave of old feelings, hope, dread, and something that felt dangerously close to love. "Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, she says. "Do not be late." He replies, "I haven't been late to anything that truly mattered in 3 years." The unspoken truth that she and Isabella mattered now hung in the charged air between them. "And Sophia," he continues, "we need to discuss that letter. Why is this the first I am hearing of 10 pages where you poured out your soul?" She tries to evade, but he presses on. "It matters to me. It matters that you believe I simply disregarded your pain," he says, when I was completely blind to it. She shoots back. "That's because you never looked, Luca. You never saw me fading away right before your eyes." The silence stretched until he whispered, "I am sorry for all of it. For every failure, for every time she wasn't his first thought." She ends the call before another apology can breach the walls around her heart. And now she stands in this small kitchen, a shadow of the mansion they once shared, wondering if letting him back in is her greatest mistake. or the redemption they both so desperately need. Chapter 3. The Child Who Is Never Meant to Be. Luca arrives at the park at 2:55, the classic precision of a man who only appears for matters of life and death. From a bench, she watches him approach, hands in his pockets, an expression of pure, naked panic she had never once witnessed on his face. He has shed his power suit for jeans and a sweater, a strategic choice to appear less like the predator he is. He is attempting to seem harmless to their daughter. "Hey, Isabella, sweetheart, you remember the man from the store? He would like to say hello if that's okay." Her voice is light, but her heart is a frantic drum against her ribs. The moment feels monumental, like a summit between warring nations. She is watching her daughter meet her father, and he is gazing at the girl as if she is both a winning lottery ticket and a live explosive. Isabella gives Luca a clinical once-over with those shared green eyes, her head tilted like a tiny queen judging a courtier. After a silence that lasts a lifetime, she offers a small smile and presents a shiny rock. "Look, it's sparkly." Luca kneels, entering her world without overwhelming it. And incredibly, his hands are unsteady as he accepts the stone, treating the small piece of gravel with the reverence he would a multi-million-dollar diamond. "Whoa, that is a first-class rock. You have a talent for finding treasures." His voice is a hush, a tone she's never heard, as if a single loud word might break the spell. "I have many more. Want to see?" She's already emptying her pockets, stones, leaves, a crumpled wrapper. A storm of emotions crosses Luca's face as he examines each piece of her collection as if it were a crown jewel. "This is an impressive treasure. You are an expert at finding the best things. Mama says I have a gift." Isabella is radiant, completely unaware of the gravity of the moment, and in that instant, Luca's defenses are utterly breached. His expression shifts from cautious stranger to devoted father in a single heartbeat. "Your mother is a very wise woman, and she is correct. You do have the gift." He looks at Sophia over their daughter's head, and the story is all there. The shock, the regret, and a fierce love for this small person he just met but would already die for. "Can you push me on the swings?" Mama gets tired. Isabella just reaches for his hand, her trust absolute. Children have an instinct for a genuine heart. Luca's fingers close around hers as if he were holding the most fragile, sacred object in the world. "I would be honored to push you on the swings. You lead the way, boss." They walk toward the playground, and she trails behind them, allowing them space, but remaining close enough for a swift retreat. She is completely unprepared for the visceral blow of watching Luca lift Isabella onto the swing with such gentle care and begin to push. The child's laughter fills the air as she begs him to go higher, and he obliges, always keeping a hand poised to catch her. The scene is so devastatingly normal, it feels like a wound, a vision of a life they were robbed of. 20 minutes pass, and Isabella announces she is thirsty, and Luca is immediately attentive, offering to fetch juice, committing her favorite flavor to memory as if it were vital intelligence. He returns with her apple juice and a coffee for Sophia, made precisely the way she used to love it. Their fingers brush, and an electric current shoots up her arm, which she pointedly ignores. She is incredible, so intelligent and bright. Perfect. He says it quietly while Isabella is focused on her juice box, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for raising her so well, for giving her the things I could not. She should have the world, parents who are present. The barb lands, but he absorbs it, a penance he accepts as his due. But I want to be present now. I want to become the father she deserves, even if I have no idea how." "It is not so simple, Luca. You have an entirely different life, with a fiancé who will not be happy about a secret child. Then I will handle Vanessa. That is your chaos to manage. He turns toward her then, erasing the distance between them. Suddenly he is too close, near enough to see the gold flecks in his eyes and smell the cologne that unlocks too many memories. Your only concern is how we navigate this together, because I will not fade away again. Not now that I know she is real. I never demanded you vanish. I just need you to comprehend that you cannot simply materialize in her life and then disappear as you please. That man no longer exists. Sophia losing you shattered me in ways that were necessary. His hand rises as if to cup her cheek, but then it freezes in the air. Look, I am aware I don't merit another opportunity, but I am pleading for one. Allow me to demonstrate my transformation for her sake and for yours. Eloquent words are worthless if they are not followed by actions. You have said all this in the past, do you not recall? And your concept of for us resulted in my being alone 90% of the time. Then observe me. Expose my falsehoods every single time I falter. His gaze is a crucible of intensity. He directs that boardroom conquering stare straight at her. I am not requesting unconditional faith. I am requesting a chance to reclaim what I so carelessly discarded. But before a response can form, Isabella rushes back, embracing Luca's legs like a devoted little protector. He lifts her into his arms without a moment's pause, holding her as if it were the most innate act in existence. Can we return tomorrow? This was the greatest day of all time. Luca's eyes meet hers over the child's head, a silent request for consent that carried the certainty of his return. And she gives a slight nod, because to keep them separated now would be an act of pure cruelty, despite the terror this entire ordeal ignites within her. Tomorrow, at the same hour. But you must inform your fiancé about Isabella before this progresses any further. She is entitled to know. Consider it done. His smile is faint, yet it is genuine. The first authentic one she has witnessed since he had shattered her world the day before. Thank you for this, for permitting me to meet her, even when I am so undeserving. I am not doing this for you. I am doing it for her. She is worthy of a father, even if that father was an abysmal husband. A fair point. He gently sets Isabella down. I will see you tomorrow, princess. Perhaps you can reveal the remainder of your rock collection. Watching him depart, a chilling thought takes hold. The walls she had erected were already beginning to fracture. To witness him with their daughter is to awaken sentiments she was convinced had been buried forever. They are navigating a minefield, attempting to co-parent with the very man she had to escape to preserve her own soul. And she has no way of knowing if this path leads to a truce or simply a repeat of the war that annihilated them. Chapter 4. Her Truth. So, Luca arrives, every single day for 1 week. Punctual, always bearing a small offering for Isabella. A book, a plaything. On one occasion, it was an entire castle that sent the child into a state of ecstasy and made Sophia reconsider his definition of small. She observes them forging their bond piece by piece. So, as Isabella becomes completely enchanted by her father, Luca undergoes a total transformation, playing the part of the model parent. He is compensating for years of absence with his daughter, who now sees him as a hero. But on the 8th day, after he executes the classic maneuver of carrying the slumbering child to her bed, the moment of reckoning arrives. The confrontation Sophia had been avoiding is now upon her. He returns to the living room, and the air thickens with unspoken tension, where she pretends to be busy, arranging toys that, his tone, A low and somber frequency offered no room for evasion, so she abandoned her distraction with the toys and faced him, knowing he was owed this truth, even if it meant tearing open wounds she had fought so fiercely to seal. Her reply was sharp. "I told you. I left because I was suffocating. You made me a phantom as if your work was your true bride and I was merely a footnote." But Luca saw through the veil. "That is a piece of the story, but not its heart. I've re-examined the timeline. You were with child when you vanished." And a quiet alarm sounded within him, for the woman he had wed was devoted to the idea of family. He drew nearer, yet maintained a charged distance, the air between them crackling. He saw the truth. "You didn't run from loneliness. You fled from terror. So confess it. What fear was so powerful that you would raise our child in solitude rather than remain with me?" And just like that, his perception struck her like a physical blow. She'd assumed he was oblivious, incapable of reading the story behind her eyes. Yet he saw straight through her facade, leaving her utterly exposed. The dam finally broke. "I was terrified of your world, the violence, the danger that clings to you like a second skin no matter how you disguise it as business." Her confession was a torrent of suppressed dread. "I would watch you return home, bruised and silent, taking calls in the dead of night that stole all the warmth from your soul." "I knew you were caught in a life that ends with a bullet or behind bars," he countered. "You understood the terms when you took my name. You knew my family's legacy and the cost of leading it." She whispered. "I understood it with my mind, but not my soul. Not until I knew that to love you was to be prepared to lose you to an enemy's blade." She wrapped her arms around her own frame, a fragile attempt to hold herself together as she fractured. "Then I learned I was pregnant, and it was no longer just my life at risk, but our daughter's. I could not raise a child in a world where her father could vanish, or worse, where she could become a target for existing." And in that moment, you could see the understanding dawn in his eyes, the sheer primal fear that had forced her flight. When his words finally came, his voice was raw with emotion he could barely contain. "So, you disappeared. To shield her, you chose the solitary path to keep her from my life. I chose to spare her a life of constant vigilance, where she could be used as a weapon against you." The tears fell now, unrestrained and unheeded. "And yes, I was escaping the ache of loving a man who could not see me as his priority. But my first reason was to give Isabella a normal existence, a youth without armed guards or lockdown protocols or the constant hum of danger." In 2 strides, he closed the void between them, pulling her into an embrace. Her resistance was a fleeting, futile gesture. He just held her as years of grief, fear, and a love that refused to die finally broke free. His own voice was thick with emotion. "I am so sorry for every moment of it, for making you feel endangered when my only purpose was to be your sanctuary." His voice broke, and she felt the dampness of his tears in her hair. "You made the only choice a mother could to keep Isabella safe, and I despise that I am the reason you had to go. I despise that my world is so broken you couldn't trust me to shelter you both." She corrected him. "My trust in you never wavered. I didn't trust the monsters you dealt with, men who see a child as nothing more than leverage." He conceded. "And you were right to fear them. That world is every bit as savage as you imagined. But there is something you failed to understand. My presence is its own protection. My enemies know that to touch my family is to sign a death warrant from which there is no escape." His hold on her tightened, becoming possessive. Had I known of Isabella, she would have lived under the highest security. She would have been safer with me than hidden where I could not protect her. Or she would have been a living target for every rival you possess, she retorted. He shot back. Perhaps, or perhaps my brutal reputation would have given them pause. He drew back, his gaze locking with hers, intensely serious. But that is not the essential point. The point is, you never should have been forced to make such an impossible choice alone. You shouldn't have been so broken that fleeing was your only option. Then she struck him with the unvarnished truth. My love for you was so immense it was destroying me. Watching you choose your empire over me again and again. Her final defenses crumbled. And I needed you beside me, not your fortune, but your presence, your time, your focus. But the organization was your master, and against it, I had no hope. You are right, he admitted, his voice hollowed by regret. I failed you in every conceivable way. I was so consumed with building a kingdom that I burned down the only thing that gave it meaning. He tenderly brushed her cheek. But I have changed. 3 years of your absence taught me that all the power in the world is meaningless when you are alone. Those are beautiful words, Luca, but they echo the promises you made back then, when I would plead with you for being a ghost. He answered, because I never understood what I was forfeiting until it was gone. Not until I walked into a silent home and the reality that you had truly left me finally sank in. His voice fell to a near whisper. For 3 years, I tried to become a man worthy of a second chance I knew I'd never receive. I built legitimate enterprises, distancing myself from the darker work. All of it in the faint hope that you might somehow know that I was trying to change. She posed the question that hung between them. And your fiancé? How does she feature in this tale of redemption? The jealousy was a tangible thing in the air. He didn't waver. Vanessa is a business contract, an arrangement I made when I believed I had lost you forever. It was a means to appease my family and keep my own heart frozen. His expression was an open wound. But then I found you again. I met Isabella, and I knew I had just been moving through a life without a soul, building a future with a woman I do not love, when the only one I ever wanted was right here, still despising me for shattering our world. She replied, I don't despise you. I never could, even when I should have. My love was simply too strong to continue letting it break me, he pleaded. Then let me fight for us now. Let me prove my transformation that I am finally the man you needed me to be 5 years ago. Chapter 5. The Perfect Fiancé. And as if summoned by fate, Vanessa Castellano herself arrived 3 days after Sophia's raw confession. She materializes during the bakery's peak hour, offering a practiced smile in an outfit worth more than Sophia's entire livelihood. She is the precise ice queen you would picture for Luca, refined, entitled, and perfectly at home in a world of power where Sophia would only ever drown. And seeing this woman's condescending smirk as she assesses her humble shop sets Sophia's soul on fire. Vanessa's voice is silk-wrapped poison. You must be Sophia. Luca spoke of you and your quaint little enterprise. The scorn is palpable, yet Sophia meets it with a hollow, professional smile. She knows this woman poses a danger that has nothing to do with physical violence. So you're Vanessa. Congratulations on your engagement. Luca told me he was getting married. Sophia keeps her voice a flat, empty thing, determined not to reveal how this entire performance is shredding her inside. because they both know Vanessa now holds the prize that Sophia herself abandoned. Thank you. Yet the news about Isabella was a true shock. She and Luca weren't supposed to have secrets, so a 4-year-old daughter was a staggering blow. Vanessa approaches the counter like a predator, her eyes scanning Sophia as if she were a mess to be cleaned up. But children are a gift, aren't they? I am certain we can make this co-parenting arrangement work. The way she spits the word co-parenting casts Sophia as some sordid ex infringing on their storybook life. Sophia has to literally bite her tongue to keep from saying Isabella was there long before Vanessa and will remain long after she's gone. I'm so pleased you're being reasonable. This isn't ideal for any of us, but Isabella is the priority, and I will be an excellent stepmother. Children require stability. The veiled threat in her words makes Sophia's blood run cold. It feels as if she's already plotting to seize control of her daughter's world and erase Sophia from it. In fact, Isabella could stay with us at the estate. She should see what a more suitable environment is like. The audacity of calling her home unsuitable for her own child sends a jolt of pure rage through her. But before Sophia can tell her where to shove that condescending offer, the bell chimes. Luca enters looking utterly blindsided to find his fiancée in her shop. Vanessa, what are you doing here? I thought you were lunching with your mother. The strain in his voice makes it clear this visit was unsanctioned. He instinctively steps between them, as if bracing for a fight. I was done early, so I came to meet Sophia about Isabella. Since we're all becoming family, it's best we get along. Her smile never falters, but her eyes are cold with calculation, and it unnerves Sophia completely. I was just suggesting how wonderful it would be for Isabella to stay at the estate, to have opportunities she can't get here. Luca's expression goes utterly blank, the mask he wears when he's silently raging. His jaw clenches as he forces out that any discussion about Isabella is between him and Sophia. She is her mother, and the only one who determines what is best for our daughter. Our daughter, how touching. You sound as if you've been a father for 4 years, not since last week. Vanessa's perfect facade finally cracks, revealing the sharp, ugly thing beneath. I am simply trying to manage this complication in our lives. You ought to be grateful for my understanding. Isabella is not a complication. She is my daughter, and I could not care less how her existence makes you feel. His voice is now absolute ice, the tone he uses just before he brings down judgment. I believe you should leave. Now. Sophia and I have matters to discuss that are not your concern. Vanessa's face contorts with fury, her hand briefly flying to her stomach before she snatches it back. Fine. But we must have a serious conversation about priorities, especially since my condition makes this timing so very challenging. The menace in her words hangs in the room like a live explosive. Luca's face is a stone mask as he deciphers the meaning behind her gesture and her supposed condition. And what condition might that be, Vanessa? I'm pregnant, about 8 weeks, which is why this wedding must happen soon, and why your secret child with an ex is such a profound problem right now. She fires the words like a sniper, watching them both for the impact. I know this complicates matters, but let's be adults and resolve this for everyone, including my child and yours. The silence that follows is a crushing weight. Sophia feels as if she's been flattened, despite having no claim on Luca and no right to feel so utterly betrayed. He just stares at Vanessa, his expression unreadable, a mix of shock and something else, perhaps doubt. Sophia knows she needs to escape. Congratulations on the baby. I'm sure you two have much to discuss, so I will give you your privacy. Her own voice sounds distant, as if spoken by a stranger from far away. She's already moving toward the back room before they can react, because she cannot witness them planning a future as her own world shatters around her. Sophia, wait. It's not what you think. Luca's plea follows her, but she doesn't hesitate. She doesn't look back. She just continues until the office door is locked behind her, her back pressed against it as she fights to breathe. Shouts erupt from the shop. Luca and Vanessa are at war, but the words are muffled by the door. Then the bell chimes again. One of them has left. Heavy footsteps cross the floor to her office. The knock is soft, a stark contrast to the rage she knows he feels. Sophia, please open the door. I need to explain. You don't owe me an explanation. We are not together. And whatever you do with your fiancé is not my concern. It is your concern when she's faking a pregnancy to manipulate us, to make you believe I've moved on when I haven't so much as touched her in months. His words freeze her, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Her timing suddenly seems far too convenient. Why fake a pregnancy? What would she gain? Control, leverage, insurance that I won't end the engagement now that I have a reason to reconsider my life? She hears him lean heavily against the door. You must believe me, Sophia. Something about this is fundamentally wrong. Her timing is too precise, and she's been acting strangely for weeks. But even if she is lying, you are still engaged to her. You're still building a life that has no place for me. A life I do not want with a woman I do not love. It was founded on something that was broken long before you returned to me. She finally unlocks the door, needing to see his eyes, to know if this is real. He looks depleted, tormented, and devastatingly sincere. What are you trying to say, Luca? I'm saying this engagement was a terrible mistake, made by a man who thought he had lost his only chance for happiness. And finding you again made me realize I would rather have nothing at all than live a counterfeit life. Chapter 6. Crumbling Lies. 2 weeks after Vanessa's dramatic pregnancy reveal, Sophia watches Luca and Isabella play, trying to ignore how much they resemble a perfect family. He is so at ease with her now, unlike their first stilted encounters. He visits every evening, making their daughter his absolute focus. It is both a comfort and a terror because she is starting to believe he has truly changed. And lowering her guard again could mean utter devastation. Isabella proudly presents a drawing of the three of them, a child's portrait of a family with him placed squarely in the middle. Sophia sees his entire expression soften in a way it only does for his daughter. The hardened edges of the dangerous man he is simply melt under her gaze. Wow, this is incredible, Princess. You are becoming such an artist. That's you, that's Mama, and that's me. We are a family now, right? The question strikes him with the force of a physical blow. She asks it with such simple conviction, merely seeking his agreement. Sophia watches Luca's hand stop moving as he absorbs the full impact of her words. If we are a family, that means forever. His voice fractures as he draws her into a tight embrace she happily accepts, and Sophia must physically turn away. The scene is too painful. A perfect fantasy she abandoned years ago. Her phone vibrates. It's a text from an unknown number, only a picture, no message. She opens it out of curiosity and finds herself looking at what appear to be medical documents with Vanessa's name printed at the top. But when she compares the dates to the story Vanessa told them 2 weeks ago, something is very wrong. A second message appears. This one contains words that turn her blood to ice. It reads, "Thought you should know who you're dealing with. The files show a negative pregnancy test dated 6 months ago, but Vanessa claimed last week to be 8 weeks along. The math does not add up. Sophia looks over at Luca, who is watching her, his expression clouded with concern at her change in demeanor. She simply offers him the phone. No words necessary. This particular lie is his burden more than hers. Even as a great wave of relief washes through her that Vanessa is a fraud, he examines the images with the intense focus he reserves for business. She watches his face shift from confusion to shock and then to a pure, cold fury in under 5 seconds as he understands what he is seeing and what it implies about the woman he is meant to marry in 6 weeks. Where did you get these? Someone sent them anonymously. I have no idea who or why, but the files look genuine enough to pursue. I will have Marco look into this immediately. If this is legitimate, Vanessa has been faking this entire pregnancy from the start. He hands her phone back, his own hands trembling with a barely suppressed rage. I knew her timeline felt wrong, but I couldn't challenge her without any proof. But why feign a pregnancy? What could she possibly gain from a lie of that magnitude? It was her safety net, a chain to bind me to this marriage, forged the moment she learned of Isabella. He rises, beginning to move, that caged animal energy resurfacing as his mind dissects the geometry of her deceit. She knew that finding you, finding our little girl, would be the end for us. So she manufactured a disaster to stay my hand, to guilt me into seeing it through. From her drawing, Isabella looks up, her child's intuition sensing the poison in the air, even if she cannot name it. Daddy, is everything okay? That single word cuts through him, freezing him in place. He sinks to her eye level, wrestling the storm of rage he feels for Vanessa, refusing to let it touch the shores of their daughter's innocence. I'm fine, my princess, just wrestling with some silly work problems. He softly brushes a strand of hair from her face. Go show Mama your picture for me. I need to make a fast call. He's already in the hallway, his voice a low rumble as he no doubt tasks Marco with validating the documents, with launching a full-scale inquiry. Isabella scrambles up beside me, chattering about her plans to add a dog to her masterpiece. I nod along, but my own thoughts are a maelstrom, caught in the undertow of Vanessa's plot and what it portends for us. When Luca returns 15 minutes later, his face is carved from stone. It is the look of a man whose verdict is rendered, ready to bring the gavel down on whoever stands in his path. Marco came through. The records are 100% authentic. Vanessa tested negative 6 months ago, and not a single doctor's visit has been logged since her announcement. So yes, she's been weaving this lie the entire time. No child, no pregnancy, just a cage built to trap me in a life I refuse to live. He eases onto the sofa beside me, taking care not to disturb Isabella, now lost in her world of crayons. It ends tonight. I'm severing the engagement, canceling the ceremony, and informing both families that I will not be a pawn in anyone's game. Your family will erupt. You're detonating a strategic alliance for a past wife and a daughter they know nothing about. Then let them erupt. I am finished sacrificing my soul on the altar of business. His hand finds mine, his fingers intertwining with the familiarity that feels both ancient and new. I should have done this 5 years ago, when you pleaded with me to choose our life. I should have turned my back on it all and forged a world with you, instead of allowing duty to burn ours to the ground. Those are still just beautiful words, Luca. Ending one vow doesn't repair the one we shattered. You're right. Words are hollow, without deeds to give them weight. He squeezes my hand softly. which is why tomorrow I am formally presenting Isabella to the world as my daughter, my heir. I'm making it known that she is under my protection and that any threat against her is a self-signed execution that will only paint an enormous target on her. You're inviting the very danger I fought so hard to shield her from. Or it will make her untouchable, because the entire world will know that to harm her is to declare war on me and everything I command. His voice is unyielding, a fortress of resolve. I understand your fear, and I honor the reasons for your choices, but we cannot keep her in the shadows forever. And I refuse to live as if my own daughter is a secret to be hidden from imagined threats. I never wanted to hide her. I just wanted a moment to breathe, to plan, before throwing her into the line of fire. And we've had that. 2 weeks. 2 weeks in which I've come to know our daughter, to fall completely in love with her. Now I'm ready to claim her before all, and to face the tempest that follows. Isabella interrupts, climbing into his lap with her drawing. Blissfully unaware she is the calm at the eye of a hurricane. Look, I gave it a puppy and a cat and a little bird. We should have all the pets. He gathers her into his arms instinctively, his embrace a bastion. He looks at me over her head, his eyes a battleground of fierce determination and silent plea for my trust. We will get you every pet you can imagine, princess. I swear it. And watching them, I feel the last of my resolve begin to fracture. It is a terrifying thing to allow hope to bloom in a garden that has only ever known scorched earth. To believe that this man, cradling our child, has finally become the one we always needed. Chapter 7. The Falling of Masks. Luca confronts Vanessa that same evening. My only knowledge of it is a call that comes near midnight, his voice a wire pulled taut with contained fury and an echo of profound relief. He confirms the engagement is ash, that she didn't even attempt to deny her manufactured pregnancy. The moment he presented Marco's proof, she crumbled, confessing she lied out of a fear of losing him, a sentiment that might evoke pity. Were it not so pathologically manipulative, it makes my own skin crawl. The true explosion comes 2 days later, when Luca summons a family council to declare Isabella's existence and his intent to name her heir, effectively dynamiting decades of entrenched tradition and succession. I was not present for the summit. Luca was adamant that family alone should witness the initial blast before Isabella was brought into the fallout. But he phoned me immediately after, his voice a ruin of exhaustion, rage, and a strange, unsettling satisfaction. My father threatened to cast me out. A pair of uncles stormed from the room, and my cousin Antonio suggested I simply buy your silence and pretend Isabella never existed. His voice was raw, frayed from what must have been hours of shouting. But I left no room for doubt. Isabella is my child and my successor. Anyone with an objection can bring it to me. My days of putting the syndicate before my own blood are over. Luca, you can't simply immolate your entire life, burn every bridge for a child you've only known for 3 weeks. I am pacing my own small apartment while Isabella dreams, oblivious to the fact that she has become the catalyst for a civil war within one of the city's most powerful criminal dynasties. His response comes without hesitation. I already have. I made the choice I should have made 5 years ago when you needed me to put you before the Enterprise. His tone is pure conviction now, the sound of a man standing on settled ground. My father can sever all ties. My legitimate businesses and personal wealth are more than enough to provide for us without a single cent of their money. But she pushes back. What about the risk? You've just branded Isabella with a target for every shark who sees your heir as your vulnerability. Which is why, he explains, he has already deployed security measures that would rival those of a head of state. A dedicated team now exists for the sole purpose of shadowing their daughter 24/7. She can hear the restless movement on his end of the line, mirroring her own anxious pacing. He concedes, I know you are afraid, but hiding her was never a permanent solution. Now at least the entire underworld knows that to touch his daughter is to invite a retribution from which there is no return. She retorts, You're gambling a 4-year-old's safety on your terrifying reputation. He counters, I'm gambling on 15 years I spent cultivating a reputation for absolute ruthlessness against my enemies. And as his voice softens, about to ask for her trust, an abrupt, heavy knock rattles her apartment door. Her heart seizes in her chest. It is nearly 1 a.m, and nothing good ever arrives at such an hour. She moves toward the door like a phantom, Luca's voice a tense whisper in her ear as she risks a glance through the peephole. It is Luca himself, standing on her doorstep looking as though he has weathered a war, his expression one of exhaustion and unbreakable purpose. She demands, What are you doing here at 1 a.m? His reply is simple, I had to see you, both of you. He needed the physical certainty of their safety, needed to anchor every word he had spoken with his presence. The instant the door is open, he is across the threshold, pulling her into an embrace so fierce, so desperate, it wordlessly conveys the entire brutal ordeal he has just endured. And for a moment, she lets herself dissolve into it, admitting a need she hadn't realized was so profound. She speaks the cold truth against his chest. Your family will not stand for this. They will never acknowledge me or Isabella. He is ready for it. Then I will forge a new family, one born of loyalty and love, not of blood and bitter obligation. He pulls back to frame her face, his gaze locking with hers. I am finished living by their code, finished sacrificing what I love on the altar of tradition. She challenges the grand pronouncements. And what happens when the dust settles and the reality of what you've destroyed sets in? When you start to resent us for the price of your rebellion? He dismisses the thought without a breath. Never. I couldn't. Because the two of you are worth more than the entire empire. I am not the man I was 5 years ago, he says. Not the fool who was too arrogant to fight for you when you left. She lays down her final condition. Then show me, prove it to me with your actions, not with more beautiful words. He accepts the challenge instantly. I will. Every day for however long it takes you to believe me again. He begins at that very moment, asking for her forgiveness, not as something he has earned, but as something he needs her to hear, so she knows he finally sees the true scope of his failure. His voice fractures when he admits, For years you were trying to save us, and I was too consumed with building a kingdom to see that my own queen was drowning. And when she finally left, his pride had turned to anger instead of grief, blaming her for abandoning a union he himself had already deserted through 1,000 small betrayals. The stark, unvarnished honesty of his words finally turns a key in a long rusted lock deep inside her, and tears she had fought for years begin to fall. She manages through a choked sob. I waited for so long for you to just see me, to finally choose me, to feel like I was more than an item on a checklist. He answers, his voice thick with regret. I know. And I am sorry for every single moment I made you feel unseen. He cannot undo the past, he knows, but he is pleading for the chance to build a future from the wreckage. She voices the specter of her deepest dread, that welcoming him home would only replay their tragedy, that she'd watch Isabella's heart break for a father destined to disappear into his empire once more. His reply is a quiet challenge. Then make me answer for it. Confront me, he urges. Each time my old demons surface, force me to prove every single day that you two are my world. The thought alone wearies her, a lifetime of policing his soul. He concedes her unspoken truth. It is not your burden to bear. He pulls back, his gaze intense and unyielding, and then the true gambit. It's why I'm making real changes, ceding operational control, stepping away so I can be present for our daughter's life, not just for meetings. A bitter laugh escapes her. Your family would never allow it. His reply is glacial. My family no longer has a say. He was acting from his own heart, not from a script written by his dynasty. A faint, genuine smile touches his lips. I am choosing us, Sophia, the family we created over the one I was born into, and there is no going back. She struggles to process it, whispering, "This is utterly mad." You are detonating your entire existence for a woman who left and a child you met only 3 weeks ago. His answer is simple, absolute. The best choice I have ever made. He leans in, a slow, deliberate kiss, a silent plea for one more chance. Her terms are clear, 1 day at a time, consistency, not grand promises. I can do that, he vowed. I will. And in that moment, in her small apartment, as he sacrificed an empire for them, a fragile hope began to bloom within her, that this time perhaps the ending could be rewritten. Chapter 8. A single choice, a path to redemption. For the following 6 weeks, Luca honored his vow. He was there, day after day, a constant presence amidst the storms raging in his business and his family. She witnessed the phantom she'd divorced transform into a father who knew his daughter's favorite color and the right way to cut her toast. He met her doubts with quiet patience, relentless in his mission to prove this time was real. His family's response was a maelstrom of fury, his father's cold silence, his uncle's branding Isabella a liability to be quietly erased. With chilling finality, Luca neutralized every assault, making it understood that any slight against his daughter or her mother was a line from which there was no return. She saw him incinerate bridges forged over a lifetime without a flicker of remorse. Then, one Tuesday, he summoned the press and persuaded her to stand with him. Her entire soul recoiled. It felt like a catastrophic mistake, like feeding their child to the merciless media. Yet his logic was sharp. Allowing whispers to poison the air was a far greater peril than seizing the narrative and speaking their own truth. And so she stood in the shadows of the stage, Isabella's small hand in hers, as Luca approached the podium to unveil the secret daughter the world never knew. The scene felt unreal, a strange, waking fever dream she could not process. She heard the sharp, unified intake of breath from the press as this fiercely private man tore down his own walls. Luca's voice was steady. Today, I announce I have a 4-year-old daughter, Isabella Sophia Marchetti, whose existence I only recently discovered. Luca's voice resonated with an authority that left no room for debate. Isabella is my daughter and my heir. She will have every safeguard and resource this family commands. Anyone with an issue can address it with me directly. He beckoned them forward, and Isabella shrank against her, startled by the flashing cameras. But the instant they reached his side, Luca swept her up, holding her against his heart like a priceless treasure. He declared, "This is my daughter, and this is Sophia, her mother and my former wife." His unstated command was clear. Their privacy was to be respected, for they were now a permanent fixture in his world. The room erupted into a frenzy of questions. But Luca remained a calm center to the storm, one arm a fortress around Isabella, the other resting firmly on Sophia's back. They paused for exactly 3 photographs before he ushered them from the stage into a waiting vehicle. His security detail, prepared for the fallout, extracted them as the bomb detonated. Adrenaline and tension left Sophia trembling, while Isabella chattered about the cameras, seeing a spectacle, not the cataclysm that had just remade their world. "You were flawless," he murmured, "both of you." In the car's quiet interior, his hand found hers, their fingers intertwining with an ease born of the past 6 weeks. "It is done. The world knows she's real and under my protection. No more hiding. It is time to build the life I should have given you 5 years ago. Your family will make our existence a living hell for this," she warned. "Your father's eyes promised murder up there. My father either accepts this or he does not. My decision is final and my priorities are set." He raised her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "You and Isabella are my family now. Everything else is just noise." Later that night, with Isabella deep in sleep, they sat on her small balcony with wine, enveloped in a comfortable silence forged through weeks of hushed conversations and shared parenthood. He had been staying later each evening, inventing reasons to linger long after their daughter slept. They had fallen into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to the fantasy she once imagined before reality shattered it. "I must ask you something," he began, his tone suddenly grave, "and I need complete honesty." It put her on alert. She set down her glass, giving him her total focus. It was a heavy prelude. "I want to give us a real chance this time. No impulsive vows, no promises we cannot honor. I am talking about truly dating, rebuilding from the ashes." He shifted, taking both her hands. "I know I don't deserve it, but I have to ask. These past 6 weeks have shown me everything I threw away, and I refuse to return to a life without you. Luca, we have a child. We cannot simply casually date when our lives are already so entangled." "Then we will date with intention," he countered. "Seriously, honestly, and build something to last instead of relapsing into the poison that destroyed us." His thumbs traced circles on her skin. "But I love you. I never stopped loving you, even when I thought you were gone forever. I want a chance to be the partner you needed." "I am scared," she confessed. "Terrified of letting you in, only to watch it all implode when the pressure mounts." "Then we establish rules," he said. "Constant check-ins. We ensure we both get what we need instead of one person giving everything." He leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. "I've learned from my mistakes. Love isn't passive. It's something you must actively fight for. And this time I am ready to do the work, not just expect you to be there while I ignore you." "One condition," she stated. "If we do this, we go to therapy. Together. We need a professional to help us navigate our baggage without starting a war." "Done. I'll book the best in the city. We will start immediately." His smile was soft, full of hope. "Anything else?" "You have to promise that the second you feel overwhelmed, you'll tell me. No more disappearing and making me guess." "I swear, total honesty, even when it's hard." He gently cupped her face. "May I kiss you now? For real?" Not the careful pecks for Isabella's sake. Yes. The kiss was a memory, but 1,000 times richer, holding years of pain and desperate love in one moment of reconnection. His hands wove into her hair as hers clutched his shirt, a frantic, hopeful embrace to erase a 5-year chasm. When they finally parted, breathless and dazed, He rested his forehead against hers with a soft laugh. I have been dying to do that since I walked into your bakery. I've been dying for you to do that for almost as long, she admitted, even while my mind screamed it was a terrible idea. Still think it is a horrible idea? Oh, absolutely. This is probably the single worst decision I could possibly make. She kissed him again, more gently. But I am making it anyway. I am done bubble wrapping my heart against a chance at happiness. They spent the rest of the night on that balcony, charting the course for this new hand they had been dealt. And for the first time in 5 years, she let herself believe that from the wreckage of their past, they might build a fortress. 3 months later, finishing a cake for Isabella's 5th birthday, Luca's arms came around her waist from behind, his kiss on her neck sending a jolt through her. Though they had been dating for months, she was far from immune to his casual touch. The backyard is insane. Isabella will lose her mind over that bounce house. You are spoiling her. That thing is bigger than my entire apartment. Our apartment, he countered. You have basically been living at my place 4 nights a week. Let's make this real, he murmurs, his hand tightening at my waist. I want you to move in. Truly. Bring your things and let us be a proper family under a single roof, not this back and forth existence. It was a monumental step. I'm prepared for that. Ready to finally build the life we were always meant to have. He turns me, forcing my eyes to meet his. I love you, and I love our little girl, and I want us all together, where I can see you when I wake and when I sleep. And the arguments. What will we do when living in each other's pockets exposes every flaw we've ignored? We'll face it, he says, like grown-ups with those tools our therapist gave us, and we will emerge from the fire stronger than before. You make it sound so simple. It is never simple. It is effort. It is concession. It's choosing this every day, even on the days it hurts. But I'm willing to put in the work if you are. Before a reply could form, Isabella and her tiny friends descend upon the kitchen, a whirlwind of squeals about a bounce house, demanding our immediate presence outside. Luca just releases me with a low chuckle, allowing our daughter to pull him into the backyard chaos. I watched him go. This man, who had literally incinerated his past just to forge a new reality around us, who appears day after day, doing the hard work, proving with his every move that he is reborn. And I knew that somewhere in the last 3 months, the dread had simply dissolved. I hadn't even felt it leave. Much later, after the party embers died and Isabella was asleep in a guest room, a smear of frosting on her face, I found him on the terrace, gazing at the city lights. I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. Ask me again. Ask you what? To live with me, to make a life with me, to take that colossal, frightening jump? He pivots within my embrace, his gaze alight with a desperate hope. Come live with me. Be my wife when you feel you are ready. Let's build our family and our future together. It's a yes to moving in, a potential yes to marriage, and a definitive yes to the future. His kiss felt like a declaration, a vow, and a profound exhale of relief. And held there in his arms, our child sleeping soundly within, I finally let myself believe in the fairy tale of a second chance, and that sometimes the continuation is far richer than the original story. An epilogue. 6 months passed. The threat arrived on a Tuesday. It came to Luca's office inside a plain mailer, no sending address. The words inside turned my blood to ice when he showed me. his entire frame vibrating with a brutally suppressed fury. They are aware of Isabella. They know she is my vulnerability, and they plan to leverage her to force my hand in a business matter I have refused. Who are they? Who is foolish enough to challenge you after you made it painfully obvious what becomes of those who harm our family, new people, rivals from beyond the established syndicates, men who do not comprehend the codes we have honored for generations? He was pacing now, that volatile energy radiating from him, signaling his intent to raise hell. They see me as weak for placing my family above the enterprise. They believe they can use my love for you both as a weapon. What is your plan? The same as always when someone threatens what is mine. I will erase them from existence and ensure the world knows that loving my family has not made me weak. It only made him more dangerous than ever. His features were cold stone, the predator he once was emerging from behind the loving father's mask. And she knew that loving Luca Marchetti meant embracing the entire brutal truth of him, including the part that did terrible things for their sake. She could only pray he would be cautious. She pleaded with him not to be killed or imprisoned, not when they were so close to winning. He promised he was always careful, that he would always come back to her, pulling her close. But then he revealed the awful truth. Now that the underworld knew their names, they had become his greatest liability, and he vowed to do anything required to keep them safe. She agreed, choosing to trust that he could command that darkness without being devoured by it. He confessed his love, telling her they meant more than his empire, his reputation, or his own existence. She told him to handle his affairs and come home. He departed with his men, leaving her with the stark reality that every adversary knew his breaking point. But seeing him with their daughter, she understood she would make the exact same choice. What they shared was worth every bit of the danger, the terror, and the ceaseless fight to keep it safe. He had literally immolated his former life and built a new world centered on them. And now the entire city was aware that Sofia and Isabella Marchetti were at once the greatest vulnerability and the deepest source of strength for its most lethal man. And she was betting everything that his devotion to them, combined with his pure savagery, would be enough to conquer whatever darkness came for them next. The end.